share.
We can see you and we can see your slides as well.
You can see me. Okay. Then I'm going to hold this thing up. This is very important. It's available. I've given it to grader operators. It can make the difference between a good road and a bad road. It's not very expensive, and you can find out how to get it in the book. Here's another thing that we'll be talking about a little bit later. This is not your average window screen. This is a screen from a gravel processing plant, my local one here in town, and this, I'm going to shake up this bottle now, and we're going to look at it at the end of this program and see what we can see from the pile of gravel I've got put in there. All right, so you might recognize this tune, those of you who were born during World War II like I was. We're changing it just a little bit in this case, and we're calling it a sedimental journey instead of sentimental, because the whole theory, um, the whole reason for this tonight is to see how to deal with sediment. Sediment begins at a gravel pit, typically, unless it's original soil in place. But if it's on a road, it probably started in a gravel pit, got hauled to a site, got spread, and then raindrop erosion, which is the first step in erosion, starts and knocks some of the, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but knocks more material downhill than it does uphill. This is called sheet or raindrop erosion. Raindrop erosion, eventually, it's really hard to see here, but they're incipient. They're just beginning. Rills. Rills eventually get deeper until they become gullies and ultimate gullies like this. This is what happens to the water that went through the gully. It's carrying that sediment somewhere downstream in this case. And this was a washout at the base of Rockhouse Mountain, which I'm blessed with trying to take care of. Fortunately, this has been resolved, but there's some other issues. This is Big P Porridge Pond after big rain events. That is a silt bloom. That's the stuff that you saw was on a dump truck at one point, now is out in the pond. Water becomes unpleasant, recreational value and property value are adversely affected. That happened at China Lake in Maine until they got their act together and started doing some things, and they're back in business now. I'm not going to get into a whole lot about how to do this because a lot of that is covered in the book that you all have access to. I hope some of you may have taken an opportunity to read it. And I'm just going to talk about the why we're doing it. Water is the enemy of the road. The three most important rules to remember when designing, building, and maintaining a road: drainage. Get the water off the surface of the road. How do we do that? We do that by sloping the surface of the road. Slope it to one side or the other, or both sides in many cases, forming a shape we call a crown. Doesn't a crown usually look like this? Yes, unfortunately it does. And there's many reasons. It doesn't make it right, and I did not learn this until I attended a grader workshop and watched what the grader operator was doing, and he did not leave the crown rounded like this, because this is what happens to a rounded crown. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but the crown should have a half an inch or 3/4 of an inch per foot. Carpenter's level is as useful as the most sophisticated surveying instruments we have nowadays. I keep one in the truck. The very effective way to check grade. That's that grade gauge I talked about. This mounts on the hood of two of my tractors, and this tells me what grade I'm getting as I'm grading a road. Very effective, so long as I maintain my tire pressure correctly, because this follows the tires, follows the back wheels in this case. That's the minimum of 1/4 or a half an inch per foot right there on the grade gauge. If you're an aviator, you'll recognize this basically as a turn and bank indicator. What happens when the crown, or with a good crown on one side and a lousy crown on the other? The left side of this had slope, the right side didn't. Potholes on one side, none on the other. The second step, drainage. Keep the water out of the base of the road. Okay, this is at the in Rock House again. This is a job I did years ago, drying up, intercepting water that was making a driveway sloppy in the spring. This is subsurface drain. Many towns do this, and it has effectively kept this driveway from getting muddy in the spring. Sometimes the mud wins. That's my tractor on the end of a dead end road. The contractor before me doing water work did not treat the road properly in the fall, and that's what happened to me in the spring. Um, the other thing that happens is washouts, even with pavement. The water is a tough thing to deal with. You've got to be smarter than the water, and the water's got all the time in the world to try to outwit you. Drainage, you get the water away from the road. Ideal road would look like this with a nice crown and a ditch system on the side to carry water away. Then water turnouts are those things that ditches hopefully lead to get the water away from the road. There are a couple of things that can contribute to the water not getting off the road, and we'll look at them. Because they carry water away from the road, the more turnouts you have, the better. But keep them as far as possible from water bodies so that the silt that they're carrying can be deposited hopefully in the woods. Woods do a great job of filtering silt-laden water. This is a turnout that led right to a culvert. I was asked to change the location of the turnout. I went another 20, 30 feet upstream and redirected that off into the woods so that any silt and winter sand that gets carried will go off into the woods before it reaches the flowing water body. What makes a good road? Start at the beginning. Should look like a house. I'm hurrying because I got a lot of slides here, and I didn't realize we were going to get cut off right at 8. Road foundation, sand, rock for strength, minimum of fines for drainage. Fines are what we'll talk about with that bottle. How strong should it be? One truck, 10,000 cars. Again, most of this is right in the book. Lots of stone, sand filler, and a minimum of fines so that the base material can drain. This is not good road building material. I dug this out of a road in Rock House, and it's one of the reasons why I suggest they don't pave, because we don't know what the original contractor buried under that road. Better to regrade it as gravel than to try and fix it if the pavement goes to hell. Road surface materials should contain lots of small aggregate, small stones like I showed in that screen, to provide the strength or the shape that will lock stones together, and sufficient fines, the binder that will lock the stones together to keep the stones from moving around. Bank run gravel is what we started with on our roads, dirt roads years ago. They just came out of a gravel bank. We put them on a road. This was simply screened to get out the big rocks. Later on, we started crushing it to make the rock smaller, and we call that crushed bank run gravel. But now, our best material starts as ledge. This is ledge. This is a pit that's less than a mile from my house. I can hear it operating from my house. This is you can see the ledge there, and you get a better idea of it here. This is really a quarry, is what this is. This is Coleman's Quarry, and that's where this material comes from. I spend a lot of time on gravel because it's typically what most associations spend a lot of their money on, and if they're not getting the right material, they're wasting their money and maybe doing as much or more harm than good. This is where this material comes. It's broken down and it's screened to produce a specificized aggregate. The aggregate is uniform in size and occasionally in content of fines, but the big thing here is that the crushed aggregate is sharper than the rounded aggregate that we would get out of just screening bank run material. This helps us to lock together. This is the aggregate with the fines washed out of it, so you can see the angularity of the stone and the size of the stone compared to an American quarter. I put 75 15-yard loads of this on a road into Conway Lake last fall. And for the first time ever, they haven't had to rebuild their road in the spring. I did 6 loads on another road yesterday. I'm hoping that they get the same results. This is our local ledge pack. You take a handful of it and with a little bit of moisture in it, squeeze it together and let it dry, and it forms like a brick. That's a rock sitting on top of a piece of that 3/4 ledge pack. Call it ledge pack. Some places call it hard pack, or whatever the local name is. Just remember that it began life as ledge, got broken down to the best road surface gravel that's ever been available. Proper combination, correctly sized broken rock, sand, silt, clay materials produce a road surface that hardens into a strong and stable crust, forms a reasonably impervious roof to our road. Optimum gravel road, 3/4 or 1 inch minus, which means the largest aggregate is 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch, and the mix contains every size below that, including sand, silt, and clay. Again, that's in the book. Dirty gravel packs, but does not drain. Somebody tries to sell you gravel that will pack and drain, go to the next one because there's no such thing. Clean gravel drains, but does not pack. Recycled asphalt is become popular. I avoid it like the plague because generally it has never had any fines added to it. The glue that held it together has either outgassed, washed out, or just hardened to the point where it won't water. It's actually worse than nothing, because what I've noticed is when you try to put water on recycled asphalt pavement, it just runs away because the aggregate won't absorb or adsorb it and won't stick to it. It just goes away. How much more stormwater does an unpaved road return to the ground than a paved road? This is not a trick question, but a lot of people think that by keeping a road not paved, they're putting more water back into the aquifer. None. If it's the proper material, properly shaped, well compacted, it won't put any more water into the ground than pavement will. As a matter of fact, this is what a good road surface looks like now with that quarter in it. If you're looking for porous pavement, you can do it. But this is Walden Pond, and they have done it there, but it's very expensive. And what I've learned from my friend geologist at Smith College is that the pavement tends to get gummed up in time, and it loses its porosity. So I think I would probably stay away from this in most cases. There's other ways that you can get water back into the ground. Careful what you order when you order gravel. Architects and engineers tend to call gravel what we call stone. When I order stone, all I want is the stone and nothing else. If I order gravel, I want gravel with a certain size material down to the sand, silts, and clay. So be careful with that. Local contractors has had to send out a dump truck and a loader when there's been a miscommunication there. Road surface problems, potholes, the age-old one, water and traffic. That's what causes potholes. To get rid of potholes, the trick is to cut to the bottom of the pothole. Just like sanding out the coffee table when the kids are grown up, you sand to the bottom of the dings and scratches, then you can refinish it. Fortunately, with the road, the stuff that you loosen up can get laid back down again. But if you can get to the bottom of the potholes, that's your best bet to get rid of those potholes. Can you fill potholes? Yes. But what I do, I make a special mix with extra stone in it, and I add this to a pothole, but I overfill the pothole. This may make a bump, but that bump won't get any bigger. The pothole will, because what happens if you just scrape over the top of the pothole and fill it with loose dirt, traffic compacts it, water settles in it again, and the pothole's right back. That's a very, very, very common problem. People don't cut out the potholes. There are other ways to do this. I'm not going to get into all those details. That's a little bit of the technique that you use. I've taught people how to do that, and they told me it works. A bump will not get larger as the pothole will as it's filled with water. Washouts, very common. This is the beginning washout on a hill, and you can see here This is one wheel track. Here's another wheel track right there. Eventually, that's going to probably wash also. You cut to the bottom of the washouts, just like for potholes, but sometimes, like this one, Tin Mountain, that T-shirt that I'm wearing for Tin Mountain, this was just before Christmas of 2023. Blood culverts, heavy rain. We couldn't grade this out, so I ended up having to add real coarse material, base material, in order to get the road passable. Double ruts, wheel tracks. You see them. If you get them and you can grade them out immediately, fine. If you can't get them out immediately, you may have to do a little more exhaustive work to get rid of them, depending upon how deep they get. Those are pretty deep. I did fix those without adding more material, but it required pulling in the shoulders and rebuilding somewhat of as much of a crown as I could. Try to get everybody to drive all over the road. Good luck. If anybody figures out how to do it, I hear a lot of people say, yes, I won't get into gender, but a lot of people say, yes, I drive all over the road, but my spouse won't. My spouse just keeps driving in the same two tracks. That can do as much harm to the road as anything. Driving all over the road, you can keep it all compacted, and you don't start those two ruts. Drying up a muddy road, we see that in the spring. Use don't add gravel. Don't add half inch, 3/4, 1 inch, inch and a half minus gravel. Add straight stone. The straight stone will help to work its way into the mud, and sometimes it takes a lot to do it. It took me 11 loads on that little truck to do about 200 feet in a one of my developments nearby one spring. The road just went to hell in a handbag. We couldn't figure out why, but I just had to keep pumping stone to it till we finally got it firm enough to be passable. At one point, I had 25 developments here to maintain in the Mount Washington Valley. Conway Lake, up as far as Jackson. And a lot of that was because of the tool that I had developed to maintain roads that was very effective. You'll see some slides of that. It's also in the book. Geotextile is a very effective way to dry up a road that gets that gets muddy in the spring. If you can get to the point where the road is firm enough for you to be able to do it by adding a geotextile with gravel over the top of that, it's a very inexpensive way. The railroads were the first to do it. They always do things right the first time. They can't do detours very easily. So this is what the geotextile does. It keeps the stuff on top from mixing in with what's on the bottom. It's inexpensive and very very effective and easy to put down. According to one report, a layer of geotextile costs about the same as an inch of gravel. Don't need to argue that anymore. The equipment we use, very common: rakes, grader blades. This is one of the most famous things that a lot of towns have used for years to clean up after a road grader. And what they are most effective at is removing the crown, unfortunately. But this is what I started with years ago, an old Gravely tractor. And graduated to the skid steer. And at one point in time, we were marketing these front runners to most of the major skid steer manufacturers. And I developed it for the truck. That's a state of New Hampshire trails truck. They used it. They really use it on their trail for trail maintenance. This has become very popular with a lot of contractors. They can put it on the front of a skid steer tractor, and it grinds. You can see it here. This is a fellow who's taken over much of my road work. This spins opposite the direction you're going, so it's loosening this stuff up. But he has set this so it's actually, you can see it digging in on the left and pulling material to the right. He's building a crown with that. Most of the guys that have these things haven't figured out how to put a crown on, and it ain't complicated. It's pretty easy. You angle it and lift the wheel on this side a little bit more than the other, and you can rebuild a crown. Very popular. Here, my truck is set to crown with the front runner. I designed the front runner so it could affect the crown. How often should a road be graded? And there's no set rule. People have asked me, what should we figure? Depends. Some years you don't need it at all. Some years you need it after every heavy snowstorm, rainstorm, or snowstorm sometimes, in order to keep things from going to hell. A ditch in time saves 9. That's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about, trying to get rid of those rills before they become gullies. Do it as soon as you can after a rain, and you can help to reduce the amount of gullying you get. The ideal conditions, springtime. We're past in this area. We're just about past it now. But the road may still be soft, but actually the front runner can help dry it out. And then in the summer after a good soaking rain. Some maintenance tips here. Trees are wonderful. And I wondered a few years ago why I was raking more leaves in my yard than I did 50 years ago. I said, okay, they grew. A lot of these trees were just little puppies when these roads were built, and now they create a canopy, and those leaves can be very detrimental to a road, in that they can block the ditches. And the worst thing that can happen is when a stick gets caught across a ditch and the leaves jam up against that, the water will go out and around and take out the road. Get rid of them as quickly as you can. This is my little BX Kubota. I have a rear-mounted blower on that, and I also have a front-mounted blower, so I can clear a lot of leaves at a time. But again, I would go around to all my developments and try and clear those leaves before they get winter sand on them, get weighted down, and it also helps the road freeze up. So that the plows don't dig them out, because those leaves will insulate the road. So they're pretty, but they can do a lot of damage to a road. Grader berms and ice dams. This is basically a grader berm. This is what the roads looked like in Rockhouse when I took them over about 12 years ago. They had been graded, they had been raked and raked and raked, but nobody ever took the trouble to get rid of that berm, so the water was still going down the road. And you can probably see it here that's carrying a little bit of sediment, instead of getting off to the ditch where the sediment could have been trapped. Ice dams are a real problem nowadays. You can see that there's still ice here, even though the road ditch is out here. Water can't get to it. It's hitting the ice and going down the road. So I have, in many cases, punched holes through these ice dams for water to get out. Even just an inch wide hole to let the water get out in several places can be a major help. Otherwise, you end up with this. And you can look on a lot of roads in the springtime. You say, "Oh yeah, that's 2 or 3, 4, 5 feet in from where the actual ditch is." But that was the ice dam that forced the water to go down there. This is a result. You can see it here of another ice dam. This was Cranmore Shores one spring. There is a ditch under here. Water couldn't get to it. Snowplow damage, more and more these days. And my nemesis is snowplow damage mixed with leaves. Gravel plowed up along with the leaves, and I try and reclaim the gravel, and I end up with a pile of gravel and leaves together. It does not make a very good roadbed. So if you can get rid of the leaves beforehand, even if the snowplow does damage, you might be able to reclaim some of that surface gravel. Our winters are getting more difficult as we get freeze-thaw cycles. The roads don't freeze up as quickly as they used to, and may thaw out in the middle of the winter. Snowplows. Anybody that's used to a trip edge type snowplow that we use here in the Northeast, that's the plow tripping going along. Those have to be graded out. I've learned to plow snow with the front runner on the wet sticky snows when the road is soft. Washboard, very common. Why? Lack of fines, good locking stone, and dry. The answer to this is to regrade and top it with good gravel if you've got poor gravel, and add calcium chloride. Now that sounds counter to somebody trying to protect a body of water. However, they've been found that calcium chloride, unlike sodium chloride, Sodium chloride apparently tends to go into suspension or solution and gets carried away in the water. Calcium chloride apparently tends to lock in the soil much better. And it can slow down the dust, and in heavy amounts, it can actually harden the road surface to save on maintenance. The Maine Circuit rider says that the kids in northern Maine are burning rubber on the dirt roads there because they've been treated with calcium chloride and hardened up. Uh, this is on Level Lake here in New Hampshire. We just spread this out of the bags and then raked it with a plastic rake. Don't wear leather shoes. It's the last time you'll ever use them. Um, the, uh, the calcium chloride will destroy leather. It's not it doesn't really hurt anything else, but it does. It's not friendly to leather. This is the way that most calcium chloride gets applied now to developments is in a solution out of the back of a truck. This is a local farm stand that I've taken care of for years. The last couple of years, I haven't had many potholes at all. I've mixed enough stone into the surface, and I've added enough calcium chloride that even with the traffic that they have, people speeding to get in and out of there, there's been very, very little torn up. So I recommend calcium chloride. Most all agencies will do that now. If it's put on properly, it can really help a road. Paving is an alternative, yeah, on the steepest hills, but the road must be ready. Got to have a strong, well-drained base and adequate drainage away. This was in one of my rock house roads. There was a little twig there, and when I dug it out, this was under the road surface. Would not have made good base for paving. That's now in a stump dump somewhere. This is a paved driveway here in Madison. It wasn't too long after that road was paved that this happened. You've got to do the proper work first before you pave. Paving is the last step. Culverts. I'm sure you all love culverts. They get plugged, they get rusty. This is the plug culvert, I think, on Passaconaway Road. They plug, the water goes over the top, can take out the shoulder of the road. This is what happens when a culvert rusts out at the bottom. The soil starts to fall in underneath, and the water keeps washing it away until you actually have a failure, and you end up with culverts that look like this. This is a driveway I took care of for years. And what I want to point out here is that there's a culvert on this driveway that was plugged, and 10 years ago, I washed a hole through it. Smooth wall culvert. I have a video online. It's one of my most highly visited videos, how to clear a culvert. And people have all kinds of complaints about what I'm doing wrong. It's been clear for 10 years. I keep the inlet and the outlet open, and the culvert actually cleared itself out once I got a hole through it because it is smooth wall culvert. We'll talk a little bit about that. The original plastic culvert. The original culverts, unless they were concrete, smooth concrete, were aluminum or steel, and they were corrugated. We started to get plastic culverts that were also corrugated like this, but now our culverts, it's a little hard to tell here, but you can see the corrugations on the outside. The inside is smooth. You drop a pebble in that in flowing water, and it'll just roll right through. You drop that same pebble in a corrugated culvert, a steel culvert, and it will probably hang up. These have been a big help in terms of keeping staying clean, but they still have to be maintained at the inlet and the outlet. This is something I came up with a few years ago because this culvert is corrugated like that. I have Coleman's cast these headers that actually lock in into the on top of the culvert, and I've been watching those for years, and most of them have stayed in place very well. One got knocked out, but it was very easy to get it put back right on top of that culvert where it still is. This is what it looks like. Okay, an alternative to culverts, the rolling dip. I think AMC coined that word. And all it is a shallow a depression across a road. This is actually my own driveway. I have 3 of these different places. Water crosses over to where it can't do any harm, rather than continuing down the road. Rolling dip, a water bar, whatever you want to call it. This is a driveway I did for somebody years ago, and they never bothered to keep after it. You've got to continue. You've got to keep maintaining. That needed much more than a rolling dip. That needed a good crown. And what I'm going to get at here is a lot of the driveways that I have in Rock House dump right straight out onto the road. Um, the driveway permit says you can't do that. Nobody pays attention to that, and it